Hello and welcome to the Martin Talk Show. We're here today to talk to the director and the cast of Starfish, which is currently on at the Bread and Rose Theatre. So I'm joined by Lucy, the director, and Emma and Peter, the cast. Hello,
Hi,
good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
thanks for having us.
So let's start with you, Emma. Tell me a little bit about this show.
Yes, Starfish. It's about a young couple, Cheryl and Tim. I play Cheryl, and they come home from work one day to find a homeless man, Eric, played by Peter, in their house. And it's quite a shock, and they have to make a decision on how they're going to deal with that. And in the end, from the kindness of their heart, they let him stay. And his stay keeps being extended, and obviously won't spoil the ending, but a decision has to be made about what happens for Eric for his future.
Now, Peter, I've heard this referred to as a thought-provoking comedy. What's your take on that?
Um, it's a mixture, really. It's definitely has elements of comedy from the character of Eric as well. I mean, it's quite outrageous in parts, particularly the early parts. And he's not particularly quick on the uptake, if you know what I mean. And so that provides some of the comedy, but it's also sad as well
Mm.
because there are elements where he's remembering how things were, you know.
So, Lucy, the director of the show. So you're halfway through your run at the moment at the Bread and Rose Theatre. How are the cast doing?
Well, as always with something like this, they've pulled it together amazingly. There are always the sort of stresses of actually not really having the time that you would like in a bigger setup, of a technical run that you can take a whole day doing. Then the next day, you have a dress rehearsal. The next day you have a show. If you're working in a smaller environment in these kind of spaces, you're asking a lot of the actors because, they're working back to back hours, for very little, doing rehearsing, getting the technical, and the technical is a very slow process. It's all, can we have that light? Can we have it down a bit? Can we have a bit
Yes.
more? It's long and slow. So they've done amazingly, pulling together a fairly long piece. And as Peter mentioned, it is a real mixture of comedy and pathos. So the audience are asked to take a journey of it, on it. Someone last night called it deeply charming.
Oh,
So
that's a lovely comment to
I
receive.
thought that
So
was
tell me
very nice.
a little bit about the journey of this show. Where did this show begin for you, Lucy?
Well, Richard and Emma and Peter and I are in a group which reads new plays, and they select them. And if they are deemed to be good enough, a cast of professional actors is assembled, and there's a one night only reading, obviously script in hand, but it has props, it has occasionally costumes, and it's moved. So it gives a good chance to see if this is a feasible piece to take forward. So that's how, and
So,
that's when I met Richard, and I've done a few other things with Richard. And he has an affiliation with this theatre where there is a writers group, for playwrights. So that's how we ended up there. And it's also in his neck of the woods. There are a lot of
and so
local references, to Collier's Wood, Tooting, etc. Not my neck of the woods, or Emma's, or Peter's.
So when you discovered this play, Richard's play, what was it that attracted you to direct it? What sparked your imagination?
Um, I think I think it's lovely to be doing something that's topical. You know, it is, and Richard's been really careful to keep the statistics correct. You know, he's updated it even during our rehearsal period to say these are the correct statistics. And we have another
Mhm.
member of cast who plays a social worker who makes sure that, you know, there is a message, but message plays can be dull and dry. Whereas this
Mhm.
presents a very accurate message, but without being dull or dry. So, you know, with well, as was said, charm and pathos, and it's thought provoking. So, you know, yeah, it's not an empty vessel.
So tell me, Emma, how do you deliver that message? How do you deliver that through your performance without going to that place of being dry or purely lecturing the audience?
Yeah, it's a difficult balance, I think, and as Lucy said, the writing does that really well for us. It takes us on that journey, and as Pete said, there's moments of real comedy. I mean, this homeless man absolutely loves ABBA and the Nolans, and so there's constant references. Oh, do you like the Bee Gees? How about the Beatles? Who do you like? And so we we keep it light, but then the behavior of Eric, you know, keeps challenging the couple and their feelings on homelessness. They're very much into like charity. They donate to charity. They're very giving people, but it really does push you, and it pushes me as an actor to actually think, if this happened to me, what would I do? And so you have to
Mm.
find the truth of that. And I think the writing and playing the truth of what might happen in that situation is how you make that interesting and engaging. We all have a different opinion on what should happen with Eric, Karen, the social worker, and then the couple. And it's nice to be able to have everyone coming at it from a slightly different angle and then coming together to make that decision and trying to do the best thing they can for him.
So you're saying that as a performer, you've discovered something within this production yourself. There isn't just something there for the audience, there's been something there for you. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about that, what you've discovered personally.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we all see, you know, homeless people wherever we go. A lot, there's a guy that sits by the tube near where I live, and I see him pretty much every day. And, you know, that we say it in the play, oh, you're not supposed to give money to homeless people because they're going to spend it on drink and drugs. And it has really made me think, oh, you know, is there anything else I could be doing? Because homelessness is such a massive, you know, thing that's happening at the moment. And as Lucy said, we've been updating the figures in the play to reflect it. It's over 300,000 now, I think, was the shelter or the crisis number. And so
Mhm.
I've really been thinking, you know, maybe I'll offer to buy him a sandwich today. Do I have any change? Because we need everybody to help and to sort of contribute to this. It's not going to be one or two well-meaning people like it is in the play. We need to have,
Mhm.
you know, everyone needs to do this. So I think it's really important, and the play gives that message really nicely.
And for you, Peter, have you discovered anything on a personal level like Emma has? Have you discovered that 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 truth and that inner reflection?
Well, I mean, I'm aware that there are homeless people out there. Like Emma, I see them all the time, you know. And what makes it harder for them now, of course, is we're becoming a cashless society.
Mm.
Uh, and you know, sometimes I sort of get money out of the NatWest, so I've got a few coins on me. Now, the alternative, of course, is to get them a meal deal or something like that. But of course,
Hmm.
that takes time. Um, so that's a better option. And it's good when I've bought a sandwich without asking them. So a bland, you know, one that they could be vegetarian or not. And they've gratefully accepted it. So you know that one is genuine. The problem is you get these uh, so-called homeless that are actually part of a gang. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Uh, that are just collecting the money for somebody. Um, but for the in the show, it's interesting to be that person.
It's interesting that you picked up on there, Peter, that there seems to be a fear within society for helping others. That we go to a place that in our minds that if we help this person, potentially that they'll do something wrong with it. Like you said, Emma, spend the money on drink
Yeah,
and
that's what we say
in
in the play.
drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the comedian, the stand-up comedian, I'm not sure who it was, but he said, "Well, what am I going to spend the money on? Drink and
Well,
drugs, probably."
that's the Emma's husband in it or partner in it. He actually says that. He says, "Well, that's what our friends do."
Yeah.
Um, but from the point of being the homeless character, he has a mission, which we can't really go into, but and they've got a Victorian terrace house, so they've got room, they've got a spare room. But
Mhm.
the comedy comes from what he's done when they discover he's there. Again, we can't give too much away, and it's an it's a bit unusual, put it that way.
Yes.
And I think he gets on better with Cheryl, and I think Tim, her partner, is less patient, um, less compassionate. Uh, would would any couple let someone stay for quite a long period? I don't know. They might do because this character is, as I said before, not quick on the uptake. Um, and so they probably feel sorry for him.
Mm.
If it was an ordinary homeless guy, you know what I mean, normal witted, then I don't, I don't know. Um, so, but people afterwards, after the show, have come up, we've
Mm.
chatted and they've said, well, I don't know what I would do,
Sparked a lot of
or,
discussion, this play, in the pub afterwards. It's been really nice to
yeah.
come down the
Really.
stairs and you hear people going,
Mm.
"Well, was that what you'd have done? Oh, I'd have done something different at the end." I think it's really getting people talking, which is exactly what this play should be doing.
Yeah.
No, I think that isn't that the purpose of theatre and art in
Yeah,
overall.
absolutely. Yeah.
And to Lucy, how are you helping the actors provoke that conversation? How do you drive that forward?
Well, I don't think you start from there. I don't
Okay.
think that's where you start from. You don't, well, you don't kind of try and propel the message or do any of that. Well, for me, I always work in small chunks. Like for me, just that the intuition of, well, emphasis there just sounds better and moving behind looks better. It's all about bit by bit putting this giant jigsaw together. That's how I feel. Yeah, it's all about detail. So it's
Yeah.
not, and then in the end, the truth of the message will or will not, come out. And in fact, because Emma's character, as she referenced, is the gentler one, and Eric, Peter's character, gets on better with her, the sort of other alternative viewpoint is put by her husband or partner, whatever he is, and I did hear someone in the pub saying, "Whoa, my God, I'd have thrown him straight out," which is kind of the other option, sort of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think directing plays is really fascinating because it is like
Mhm.
a jigsaw, and it's mimicking life, but it's also theatre. It's not meant to be dull and boring, but on the other hand, it has to have some truth behind it, otherwise it's empty and not of any interest to anyone. So
Tell me a little bit more, Lucy, about the reactions and the things you've heard in the bar after the show. I'm really interested to hear more about that.
well, don't forget we've only had 2 evenings.
Of course.
We
Oh,
only
of course.
started Tuesday, so we've had Tuesday and Wednesday, and we've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And yes, of course, the question is, we've done a huge amount of work for something that's only going to be on that many nights. If we could take it forward. Richard is also not only the writer, but he's the producer. So really, he's the one who may or may not have an overview of where it could go. And he did
Mhm.
try, I believe, to get in touch with homeless organizations, have a Q&A, etc. None of that actually happened. No one seemed to respond, but yeah, there is, more life to it. Obviously you get all sorts of opinions. Oh, well, that's not very plausible. That would never happen. Or no one would ever keep someone who'd, got into this sort of thing. But I think with any theatre, you have to just go with it. And and there is suspension of disbelief, not like, oh, well, that wouldn't actually happen. And, but this is a quite realistically based piece. Any of it could have happened,
Yeah.
It's not based on a true story.
No. There's lots of different times where the couple could have asked Eric to leave. The beginning being one, they've come home and there's a dinner in the oven and he's done the washing up and they're going, what's going on here? And they say, ring the police, and then they don't. And I think it's that decision of how far would you let this carry on? He crosses some boundaries and, behaves in some interesting ways. And so you think, oh, how would I react? And I think that's why there's so much discussion. People are saying, well, I'd have called the police as soon as I saw him there, or, after that moment, that's when I'd have asked him to leave. And so I think it's making everybody think about it a bit more deeply. And as Lucy said, it's sort of that elevated, it's got to be a little bit more elevated than super naturalistic, because it's theatre and you have to sort of really
You have to enter, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, you do have to entertain. You
Yeah.
can't just lecture
Exactly.
through your art, can you?
Yeah.
Otherwise, your audience would just switch off. No one wants to be told, do they?
No, and I think
But we do.
build. Sorry, we build
Go on,
up
carry on.
sort of a relationship with all of the characters, all four of the characters that you meet in the play, and so you do really start to see it from everybody's point of view. People have been saying, oh, I'd have thrown him out, but actually the more you get to know him, and Cheryl does get really fond of him. They get along really well. They sort of they tease Tim quite a lot, and they have quite a nice relationship. And there's a couple of lovely scenes actually that are just Eric and Tim, the two men, which don't happen very often, but you sort of see that relationship building. You can see Tim's sort of annoyed by Eric, but sort of he's very endearing as well. So you can see why he's there for so long, and then how they make the decision at the end. But you really do kind of fall in love with all of the characters and all of their journeys within the play, which I think is really nice.
So, go on, Peter.
Right. Well, also one of the drivers, is that he is really a sad soul, because he's lost what he had. His dad died quite young, and no one wants him. And there's also, he threatens to kill himself, which is another element, of course, which is one of the reasons that he might be allowed to stay at least the first night, and then it goes on from there, without giving too much away. What's interesting, and again, I can't really give it away, but something he does would make you question whether you would eventually throw him out.
Yeah, it's a big dilemma.
Which I think is a nice, it's a clever piece of writing, because if there wasn't a particularly strong reason why he's thrown out, you'd think, well, why have you kept him so long then, etc. So it's really...
Well, having not seen this production, this is exactly this is exactly the type of theatre that I love. The type of theatre that asks questions, that is asking questions within the piece, but makes you ask questions of yourself as well. And it sounds like of the wider society and community that we live in, and how we want to support each other. This really sounds like a really important, and, like it's been referred to previously, a thought-provoking piece of theatre. So where do you all hope that this show is going next then? Your hopes and dreams, if you could take it anywhere, what does that look like for you, Lucy?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, we can all wax lyrical about the message of the play, the integrity of the play, and its beautiful artistry. But unfortunately, as with most things in life, it's about how much you can draw in an audience and how big a space you can fill. My dream theatre is the Royal Court. My very first theatre job was there, and I absolutely adore it. It's a smallish theatre, everything else. Now, getting this to the Royal Court, say, would be a very big deal. But to fill a space like that, and then there is a lot of marketing required, a lot of making sure you do not want to have the Royal Court, even the studio, half empty. You want to be able to build the audience and make sure that people would want to come see it. But that would be amazing, that sort of thing. But I've no idea if that would be a possibility for this. But why never say
something, haven't you?
Yeah, never say never. There's clearly an important piece of theatre here that has a road to go on. So, what does that road look like to you, Emma?
I mean, I would just like it to. I mean, you mentioned touring earlier, and I think that's a really lovely way of taking a piece of work like this. And, maybe you take it to some community venues, maybe you take it to the people. It doesn't have to be a theatre space that these stories are told in. You can tell them in any sort of place. And I think it would be really, really special to take this to, around the country and, say, this is a problem in London, but it's a problem in the whole of the UK. It's a problem in the whole of the world. So let's try and do something about it. And I think if you can take this sort of thought-provoking theatre to people like that, that might not traditionally come to theatre, perhaps, that is another whole band of people that you wouldn't have ordinarily had to see this play. So I think that would be what I would envision for the
play. And Peter, for you, do you see this going further?
I would like it to, yes. One thing I would say is it lends itself, perhaps a lot of plays like this would, to a small space. The so-called black box type theatre, capacity is around about 50, I think, 50 or 60, isn't it? And you're quite close to the audience, and when I go and see a show, I much prefer it, that intimacy. This wouldn't work. It'd be more just like a play if it was in a big space, But yes, I mean, I'd be happy to help provoke people, yeah. But it's said in the play, that it takes a collective effort, It's like climate change. It's hopeless unless everybody does it, isn't it? So I hope we're not doomed, but, so it's the same sort of thing. I mean, I think Germaine Greer years ago took in a homeless person and it went wrong. It was the wrong type of person who she took in. I can't remember what happened, whether he attacked her or what. Do you remember that, Lucy? Yeah.
Because I do have a friend who did exactly that, and it did not end well at all. So, but I think then we're talking about a slightly different scenario where there were drugs involved, and then you're on a different journey.
That's sort of the point, isn't it? Because that's not necessarily the solution, is taking one person that you don't know into your home. It's what else can we do? And we talk about giving to charity and all those things, but I think it's a collective effort. But maybe the action of taking somebody into your home is not necessarily the best thing for everybody. Yes, they're off the street for that night and they have those, some of those needs taken care of, which is obviously essential. But as a long-term plan, it's probably not the best long-term plan for either side of that.
Yeah. It's interesting nowadays that, as Peter or someone said, that we're instructed not to give homeless people money now. On the tube, there is an announcement about it. And so for ages, I've believed that and listened to it and not done it. And just 2 nights ago, when I was coming back or whatever, I was on the way, I can't remember, to the theatre. And because of seeing Peter's performance so movingly as a homeless person, somebody who was male and who was of a certain age came through the carriage, and I just had a different attitude. And I thought, oh, well, what the hell? You know, if you're in that position and you're asking, I'm sitting here with coinage in my purse, then I don't really, it doesn't matter almost. He needs it much more than me. And I noticed that one other young woman in the carriage, and I gave him something, and that was fine, you know. But I thought, oh, that's interesting. So in a tiny way, you know, that has affected me. So interesting.
That's a really good point to raise. Does this person need what I've got more than I need it? It takes me back to a moment. I don't think I've ever told anyone this, actually. What I'm going to tell you now.
Ooh.
So about a year ago, so in my town where I live north of London, about an hour's journey outside of London, and the homelessness in this town is rising. And one day I was walking along one of the back paths of the town. We have cycle paths, and there was a man sleeping in a subway down there. And I took him my tent because I haven't used my tent for about 10 years. It's just been sitting in my garage. And so I gave it to him because I didn't need it, but he did. And I do think that's a much better mindset for us to have as a community, is what can we give that we don't necessarily need, whether that's a pound in our pocket or a tent that's been sitting in the garage. How can we help each other out in this world?
Yeah, we need
What
more
can we
of that.
do for each other?
Yeah.
Well, someone actually said about this business of, well, they could spend it on drink and drugs. It's more likely to be drink than drugs, I think, because drugs aren't necessarily that cheap, are they, for a homeless person? And someone else said, well, why not? Why shouldn't they have a drink?
If that's what they need,
You
then
know?
that's what they need in that moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's depressing. You know, there's someone, we rehearsed at Lucy's house and some of the time, and I'm sort of walking distance, takes about half an hour. And in the park or the green area on the way to Chiswick High Road, there's someone on the bench there. He looks quite snug, you know, completely covered up, you know, using the whole bench lying on it. And of course, everyone has a story, don't they? I remember reading an article, a couple of stories why someone is homeless. And one example was a guy whose marriage broke up, and because of that, he went into a depressive state, lost his job. You know,
Yeah, the circumstances for homelessness can be vast, and they can be, you know, I think it's a really bad thing for us to do, to assume and create the stories ourselves for
Exactly.
people, and decide ourselves what they're going to spend the money on, or what the situation is, what type of person they are, for why they're on the street. Again, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told many people, that I've been homeless for
oh,
myself. I have actually had a period of time in my life where I separated from my partner and had 3 months of sofa surfing, where I had nowhere to go and didn't. But luckily, I'm very blessed and lucky that I've got good friends and family that could support me through that moment. But there are people out there that don't have that.
no. I mean, I always give money. I don't buy the magazine. I used to, big issue, because it used to be once a month at a reasonable price, and I'd actually almost finish reading it. But then it changed and got more expensive. But if I see a big issue person, there's one near the big Sainsbury in Chiswick. So I normally give it a quid and say, I don't want the magazine, you know, just have a. Because at least they're making an effort, you know, to change their lives, you know. the big issue situation is great. You know, I mean, the guy who started it and all the rest of it.
So, have you considered with this show in any way contributing outside of the conversation? Has there been any charities that you've been able to connect to or give something back to, or is that potentially something you could consider for the future?
I think to consider for the future, yeah, absolutely. We as I
Mhm.
said, we
Yeah.
reached out to a few, but we weren't able to connect in the time that we had available. But I think if this play was to go on somewhere else, that's absolutely something we could do, or talk about doing that after this run at the Bread and Roses. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think Emma's idea is a brilliant one. You know, because it is actually a shoe-in for a community event, and because it brings up topics, it's unthreatening piece. It's, you know, there is a bit of swearing, but it's almost, I mean, it's suitable for teenagers and above.
Mhm.
I probably wouldn't take anyone under teenage years to it.
Mm.
But yeah, that's a great idea. And then maybe we could put a bit more effort into, yeah, outreach.
Yeah.
But apparently, charities are notoriously bad at replying because they're
Yes.
understaffed. They don't really have the time to start, you know, because I think
So
Richard really made that.
I do a lot of community theatre myself, and I
Ah,
do a lot of different theatre productions. And particularly when I'm doing community theatre, I tend to get a bucket from the
Yeah.
charity, because I've tried to engage with some charities, and yes, you're right, it can be quite difficult for the engagement with them, but they are, they are happy to receive a donation, and that is
Mm.
one way to support the cause, is to ask your audience, have you got a few pennies? If
Yeah.
there's something that something that made you think here, and then your production could help potentially in that way.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a great idea.
Also, it could be a way of getting some funding as well.
Of
Um,
course, yes.
you know, because the Arts Council usually want some kind of hook, don't they? They want,
Hmm.
you know, they're more likely
Mm.
to give money if there's some.
Benefiting a wider community of people. That's generally the reason,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is a great thing to be able
Yeah.
to do with a piece like
Well,
this.
we'll
Yeah.
come up to your town first then, Martin.
Yes.
I
Focus
would
in.
love that. I would love that. Yeah, come this way, and I'll share some
Do you
details with you.
okay? Do you have the ear of the local I don't know organizer of the community theatre for a start? You know.
Yeah. We have one of them right here. So
Oh,
I run it.
fantastic!
I run a community theatre within this town. I have done for the last 20 years
Okay.
as one of my side projects. One of my many. My love is theatre, and that's kind of one of the things that started me doing these podcasts and these conversations around theatre. But so yeah, I'll share some details with you of the theatre I run, and I'd love to find a way to bring your show here if we can,
That'd be great.
and maybe help connect you with. We have a wonderful charity in Harlow called Streets to Homes that help people who are homeless, and they do things like they go and outreach to find out what their story is, and try and engage with them in a way to give them some support to find a way into finding a home again, finding somewhere safe to live for them. So as the theatre that I run, we do try and help them when we can as well. But yeah, let's
Yeah.
find a way to engage. Let's find a way to bring this show to Harlow.
Sure.
Hello, I have you have a big theatre there, don't you? I
We
played
do,
at that theatre in Harlow
do you
a
know the
long
Harlow
time ago.
Playhouse is?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you broke up there, Lucy. What was that?
No, I do remember playing in Harlow many years ago. So that, yeah, at the big theatre
I think I have as
Yeah.
there.
well,
But
actually. I've been on tour quite a lot, and yeah, I think I've also played the Harlow Playhouse. Lovely theatre.
Yeah,
so what's
amazing.
your
So it's
theatre
not that
called?
it's the Victoria Hall Theatre. So
Victoria.
it's in the old town. It's given me so many opportunities in my life, this space, but it's an old village hall that the community over the last 20, 30 years have slowly built it into a theatre space.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd love to have you down, even just for you to come and have a look at it. I love to show it off to people because it's an amazing thing that we've achieved and created here. So yeah, if we can find a way to bring your show here, that'd be really great.
Let's do it.
And I would really like to see your production as well. I'm really intrigued to see it. Unfortunately, I'm not available this week, so I will miss it. But as we wrap this conversation up, if anyone, I'm going to try and put this conversation out later today. If anyone listens, if anyone hears this, where and how can they get tickets?
If you go on the Bread and Roses theatre website, the play's called Starfish, and yeah, it's playing until Saturday. The show's at 7 p.m. rather than 7:30, and you should be able to click through on the Bread and Roses website for tickets.
And Lucy, if we want to find out about the show for the future, is there a way after it's been on at the Bread and Rose? Where can we find out more details?
Well, you have Richard's contacts, don't you? Which is how you originally contacted us all. And he
Yes.
is at the moment, he's the writer and producer. So he would be the person to approach. But, you know, as we've had the conversation, we can also mention it to him.
We're also on
So
Instagram as well. Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt.
So if I add an Instagram link to the
I
comments
think
of
it's
this.
Starfish the play, and it's a tealy blue poster with a starfish on it. And
Wonderful.
yeah,
I'll be sure to add links in the comments below for if anyone's been listening in.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining, everyone. I really do appreciate it,
Thanks, man.
and I really do hope I get to see this show in the near future.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks again, everyone. And if anyone has been watching or listening, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.